Thanks for joining, everybody. Happy Thursday. We are here with the Baselane team, and I'm excited for you all to meet them. It transformed my life as a DIY landlord and my bookkeeper's life as well. So that is super awesome. Has anybody on the call heard of Baselane before? Maybe just raise your hand using the little whatever button at the bottom. Anybody here? Have you ever used Baselane?
No.
Yeah, nice. Okay, looks like just Mike. I found out about Baselane on AI when I was struggling at the end of last tax year to figure out all of my bookkeeping, and thank goodness for AI, because like I said, it has totally changed my life and helped me be so much more organized and like have everything in different spaces, like different LLCs and trusts and properties under all those things. It has completely just made everything so much more manageable instead of having everything in like apartments.com and Zillow and like all the other tools that I know many of us DIY landlords use. So very excited for you to hear from this team. And I think everyone on this call knows who we are. We are realtors in Central Oregon and sometimes other places, and both investors ourselves. And if you're not on our top picks email list, you can hear and see all of the best real estate investments that we find every single week by snapping that QR code with your phone, and you'll get that sent directly to your email. Sarah, you want to say anything?
Nope, you covered it, Suze.
Okay, all right. On to our agenda. So we'll just do quick intros of everybody that's on the call so that Sydney and his team can get to know you all and where you're at in your landlording journey. And then he wants to know where you're at, what you need, and then he'll talk about some of the different features. So just so you know, Baselane has a banking feature, which I love, tenant screening, rent collection, bookkeeping, and like I was saying, you can really organize your properties according to how you have your different entity structures set up. So he can speak to that for some of you who I know have some of those different structures. And then you can sign up for Baselane, or you can sign up for a call to chat with this team and just get more of a demo if you're interested in what you have seen today. So did I miss anything, Sydney?
No, I don't think so. The only thing I would put a disclosure on is maybe either. Just to be very transparent, we do not offer trust banking. Just to make sure we stay within the world of and all that lovely good stuff. We don't want to mess with that. But no worries there. Everything looks great. And I'm just happy to be here. And we'll go from there.
All right. Let me get back to my agenda. Okay, perfect. Let's hear from all the folks that we have in the room. And I'm just probably going to go bottom to top here and keep admitting people. We got a lot of people showing up. This is awesome. Okay, so Mike Jenkins, let's hear from you.
Hey, myself. There we are. Hey, how are you? I've been lucky enough to know Suzanne from well before either one of us were in this industry. So it's exciting to see us both at this point.
Well, we're glad to have you, Mike. We did a quick intro of you when you first joined, but Mike is a local midterm rental property manager in the Bend area. And it sounds like you've heard of Baselane before, but you haven't used it, right, Mike?
Karen's heard of it before.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining us. All right, we've got Maylin Tran. Good to see you again. You want to just give us a quick intro of where you're at and what you're hoping to get out of today's meetup with Baselane?
I'm Maylin Tran. I'm from California and have a handful of properties and want to see how I can organize them better because it is a lot of work to manage all, the expenses, to receipts, all of that. So here to learn.
I feel your pain. It's getting better though every day. Awesome. Good to have you here. All right, Mark McDonald.
Hello, I'm in Portland and I'm going to do some co-living with a remodel I'm doing. So I'm just planning ahead a little bit.
Excellent. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Justin Stevens, where are you at these days, my friend?
I'm sitting in Sun River in our remodel that we just finished. And anyway, we have, as you know, we have several multiplex units around the state. And I'm always looking for more efficiencies to help me run those because I self-manage everything. So
getting your rep status.
Yeah, I got it.
Yes. Well, this should help. All right. Jordan, good to see you on here again.
Thanks. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. I'm at work and I've been having audio issues with my laptop. I can see you. I can hear you.
Perfect. We can hear you. Glad to have you here. Jonathan Barr, another Bend area property manager. Are you able to talk? Looks like you're muted.
Hear me?
There we go. Yep, we got you.
Yeah, local Bend property manager and starting to ramp up quite a bit. So trying to find other ways to be more efficient.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here. Grant, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. Yeah, excited about this one. I'm in Bend. I have a handful of properties, but they range from long-term, short-term, and mid-term rentals. So I'd like to find something that could, help make taxes a little easier at the end of the year as far as all the different filings and stuff.
For sure. Yes. Well, you'll get a lot out of this. I am sure of that. Glad to have you. Duffy Ford joining us. I think you're probably the farthest away of anybody on this call.
Yeah, Duffy Ford, just outside Louisville, Kentucky. Pretty experienced investor. Been doing it about 20 years. I self-manage. I do have a guy who helps with maintenance requests and leasing. But yeah, just want to get more efficient. Always looking to learn and improve. So looking forward to learning something.
Well, we're glad to have you here. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
All right, Brady, welcome.
Hey guys, local to Bend, Redmond. Also have a couple long-term rentals, a small short-term rental, and yeah, hoping to hopefully buy like a Sun River house this year. So just throwing that out there as well for short-term. But yeah, do it all myself. I'm looking for ways to make it easier.
Super. This will help. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Sydney, who is from Baselane, and he will introduce himself and start giving you all the great info that you all are looking for to make your lives easier as landlords and even property managers. Where do you?
I love it. Not sure what happened on the slide there, but that's okay. Yeah, happy to be here. I love hearing these stories, whether you're just starting, whether you've been here for 20 years. I think in real estate, it's fun because I don't know if anybody actually knows everything, and I don't even know if it's possible because every real estate journey has a unique story with it. So I always like to say everybody started a different way. Everybody came into real estate a different way. So there is no like perfect one size fits all. So I love hearing these stories. I love hearing all the different strategies. It sounds like there's some midterm rentals, maybe some potential short-term rentals, long-term rentals. Is there any like commercial, any self-storage, anything like that going on? One thing I will encourage as I continue to talk, you may hear my voice a little too much today, arguably. So please utilize the chat. I like to answer any and all questions on the fly. I'm an open book. I always just say, be careful what you ask me because I will answer it. So happy to help personally, professionally, whatever it comes down to. But a brief history of me is I've been in real estate for a few years now, not 20 for sure, more like 6, but I own and manage 42 units. It's what I do. But also I have quite a bit of experience in financial technology. So I've helped folks of all shapes and sizes, whether you have 200 entities and you're pretty structured, or you just started yesterday and you still own properties in your own name and you haven't really thought about structuring to LLCs. I work with all shapes and sizes. I've helped over 1,000 folks personally join Baselane with their onboarding, helping them, answering any questions. So I'm certainly not an advisor. I'm certainly not a lawyer or an accountant, but I've seen a lot of different ways of how people operate and do their own things. So happy to provide efficiencies where I can. So again, open book, ask any and all questions. They're all welcome. I will take you through a tour of Baselane today so you can see it. I'll show maybe based on what I've seen in the room where I think it'll be most valuable to you folks while we can stay on time. And then we can pivot a little bit, save lots of time at the end for lots of questions and open up to the room. But my goal today would really be, even if I can just help one of you, that's a win for me. My passion is really just helping other investors. And as I continue to grow, I'm going to keep learning more and more. So, with 20 years experience, I'd hope to learn something in return maybe one day. That's a brief introduction, maybe a little bit long-winded, but any questions up front? I will ask just a few additional questions before we kind of kick it off. If you're comfortable just typing in the chat, I'd love to know maybe like what some of the softwares you're already using. I like to offer competitive analysis up front, and I've seen and heard a lot of different softwares and can compare them pretty fast. So if you're using like midterm rentals, I'd be curious what type of software you're using. RentFind, beautiful. I just helped someone yesterday with that. I just got an email about it. And then that tells me maybe short-term rentals, perhaps. Buildium, great, really great product. And then I see a raised hand, so take the floor, absolutely.
Yeah, so just to speak to that, I started out using Hemlane, and then that was pretty clunky for me, and I can't remember why. But then I transitioned over into DoorLoop, which has been okay, but I'm not an accountant, and keeping the books balanced there are pretty tough for me. So I'm still having an accountant using my online. So those are the two that I'm familiar with, and I'm wondering if you can speak to those.
Absolutely. I'll definitely compare QuickBooks Online today. We definitely even helped Suzanne switch at least some of hers from QBO to Baselane. So I can break that out pretty clearly. And then, yeah, just based on what I'm seeing in the chat here, even when I see something like Buildium, beautiful platform, it's a great product, really designed for like 500 units or more, maybe. For arguably, sometimes what we see with softwares like that is you're paying a lot of money and you're only using like 5 or 10% of the actual power of the software. So sometimes you're just overpaying for something you're just not using. So we end up working with a lot of folks that might transition. Really, Baselane doesn't want to be a property management software. So we work really well if you want to use us for that, for maybe a more simplified version, which I'll break down of like maybe 2 features that we may or may not be missing based on what you may need us for, just because I know there's a property manager in the room. And then Steph's a very similar product, which is great, very close with us in terms of like offerings. What separates us is our core focus is banking and bookkeeping, and it will remain to be. And Steph might have started more on the property management side, transitioning. So lots of fun stuff there. Yeah, let's kick it up. I'll share my screen. I'll take us through a tour. But one question I like to ask up front, maybe 2, arguably 3. But one is, are we in growth mode right now? Are we still thinking about growing and scaling our business? Or are we more in like maintenance mode? We're just trying to slow down, get our books in order. Or maybe you're at the point where you grew a little bit too fast. Now you're worried about taxes. You got to take a break so that you can get things in order before you grow. If you don't mind just typing it in chat, if you're like trying to grow and scale your business, or you're more in like maintenance, maybe we're thinking retirement so that you're trying to sell your portfolio and somebody actually understands what they're looking at. Scaling, beautiful. And then outside of that, maybe a vague question. You don't have to answer this, but I do like to know maybe like how many entities you have. You could say like 10 plus, 20 plus, 100 plus, 0. What is an entity? It's all open here. It'll help me break down what might just provide more value for the folks in the room. But growth, love that. Maintain what I have and slow. Yes, you've been at it for a little bit, my friend. How many units are you at currently?
Can I talk?
30.
Yeah, 20. I think we've got 22 doors, and then I manage 8 for a friend of ours.
Love it. Perfect. Yeah, I'll break it down a little bit here. Okay, let's kick it off. Outside of that, yeah, if you're comfortable sharing how many entities, if not, I'm just going to give you guys a couple of broad examples of what I see every day, and then we'll go from there. So I don't typically use Google, so I'm going to see what this looks like when I share it and see if everybody can see my screen there. I'm going to move this to a different screen. Can everybody see the dashboard here? Full disclosure, this doesn't actually exist. If you were to join Baselane today, it would look a little bit different. We just changed our UI and some of the updates. So you might notice a couple of things that are kind of irrelevant today, but we're going to break it down pretty simply. I like to break things down pretty much in steps 1, 2, and 3. So we'll definitely talk about the banking side of Baselane. We see a lot of landlords get a lot of value here, and then we'll definitely spend a lot of time on the reports, analytics, and some of the automation and the use of AI through bookkeeping. And then we can touch on rent collection too, especially where there's a property manager. I feel like you're probably most interested in that when you heard about it. But then again, please, any and all questions are welcome on the fly. There's no question that's really going to put a hard stop to my thought process. I like to just go with the flow here. 45 doors as a PM, beautiful. 3 rentals growth, 3 SDR, 9, perfect. 27 doors, so 2 PM. So maybe I lied a little bit. I'll spend more time on rent collection as well. But I'll break it down as if we're a property manager, we're growing, we just started, all the good stuff. I appreciate you guys for sharing this. This is helpful. Outside of that, it's pretty simple with Baselane. We are building it for investors as investors. So if you've never really heard of Baselane before, you've heard it in passing, or you keep seeing the name, but you never really spent the time to look at it, it is the leading banking and bookkeeping platform out there for investors, mainly because I wouldn't say folks like myself, but we're all investors too. Like a lot of us at Baselane are investors, so we're building it for investors as investors. One of the advantages, against one of maybe the competitors that I saw, is that you do actually get to work with someone like myself. I personalize it to you. Because you guys joined the call today, I'll make sure or make a point that we will personally onboard you with our team in the room today. Myself and Basan, he's my right-hand man. He's been helping Suzanne as well. But we'll help you, whether that's literally virtually holding your hand through the process. Click here, sign up there. I'm happy to do that for each and every one of you in the room today. Just because you're connected with Suzanne, it just makes for a nice touch. But it's pretty simple. If we're comparing something like, say, Baselane, and we're going with a different competitor or Baselane as an example, the very first step in Baselane remains the same. You're just going to add your properties, whether that's one property or 100 properties. In Baselane, when you add a property, you're just telling what it is. Is it a single family home that you're converting into co-living? Is it a duplex? You live on one side and you're renting the other. Is it a multifamily complex where there's multiple units? Is it a midterm rental that it's a single family home, but you're renting by the room? It just depends what it is. All you're doing on our end is putting what it is, whether it's commercial, single family home, you're going to nickname it and then select the units. You can brand them for short-term rentals. You can call them whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. Why I mentioned just a second ago is when you nickname a property in Baselane, it's like adding a class in QuickBooks Online. The difference is for most investors, in my opinion, is when you log into QuickBooks Online for the first time, it's incredibly overwhelming. Most of us aren't accountants. When I got into real estate, I wanted to knock down walls and make them better, renovate it, and I thought it would be easy. When you look at QuickBooks and you're not an accountant or a bookkeeper, it can be really overwhelming. So it's pretty simple in Baselane. You just name it 123 Main Street or whatever you'd like to add it, and then two things happen. One, you can now collect rent to this property once you've created it. And two, you can now associate transactions to that specific property on the bookkeeping side. The additional thing that I don't even know if I went over with Suzanne is that when you actually add the property, and say you're maybe a little bit further into the game and you're thinking more about assets, liabilities, planning for cost segregation, planning your depreciation, keeping up with your mortgage, figuring out piece by piece where you stand, you can add a lot of extra info to that property. You can track your mortgages, see where it stands. You can also get estimates where, the purchase price might stand. We use Zillow, for example. So you can see, an estimated book value, your current depreciation, and you can break things down really, really granular here. A lot of folks skip that step until they're a little bit further in, but as simple as it is, add your property. Whether you buy one tomorrow or you've had them for 20 years, add all your properties, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper on why a lot of folks will do that up front. After you add your properties, we'll transition a little bit on the banking side. I'll just go kind of top down here and then answer any questions that I see on the fly here. One of the biggest advantages, or maybe arguably one of the more annoying things, is as you get bigger and bigger in real estate, you're going to start thinking about security, liability, starting to separate your entities, starting to separate your LLCs. A common example in real estate we see, me personally, I'll see folks that have everything in their personal name. I've seen two brothers with 1,263 units or properties, and they're winging it. They don't do accounting. They've been just buy. They don't have entities. They don't have a perfect structure. I've seen folks with one building and have the most sophisticated accounting setup I've ever seen in my life. The truth of the matter is you have to do whatever you're comfortable with, whatever makes the most sense for you, and then whatever your risk threshold is. So a common example is you get into the idea of having a holdings company. That holdings company then funnels down to separate property LLCs. And then maybe over here you have a management LLC. If you're not there already, don't worry about it. You're not behind. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just you haven't thought about it or you're not quite there yet. Or maybe it's just not advantageous to you. I do things a little bit differently. Personally, I've pocketed my portfolio in different pockets of $1 million a piece. It's a nice big round number for me. Hopefully nothing goes wrong, but if it does, it's only going to impact that one LLC. So I have some LLCs that own multiple properties. I have one LLC that owns one property. It's just what I'm comfortable with. It doesn't mean I'm doing it the right way. So a common example we see is folks that either started a holdings company because they read a book saying that's what they should do, and then they just ended up owning everything in that holdings company and doing everything. So it's not a real holdings company. Some folks start in their personal name, most do, and then you might own multiple properties right now in your personal name. Sometimes you have that perfect setup where you have a trust, a holdings, property LLCs. And the reason I'm saying all this, I'm going to give you 3 examples today. One, you have an LLC a business or things in your personal name where there's multiple properties underneath that entity. The second example is more if you have a property specific LLC, and then also maybe cater to short-term rentals. I did see a few short-term rentals here, so I'll give you a quick idea of like why we have a lot of folks that use our banking on the short-term side. Outside of that, if I miss anything, please feel free to ask questions. But one of the biggest perks is you might have multiple banking relationships. You might have Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a local credit union you've worked with since you started, or anything like that. It can be a little bit frustrating when you have multiple entities because sometimes you have to have multiple logins at the bank. Sometimes you have multiple banks and they all charge you fees. Logically, after you create an LLC, you have to create a business bank account with it. With Baselane, you have one login and you have all of your entities located in one spot. Every one that you add is completely separate or independent from one another. And what that really means is that they're all separately FDIC-insured for up to $3 million. Inside each entity, you can create as many bank accounts as you want, whether that's 100 bank accounts as a property manager or one as a property LLC. The total running balance within that account is really where it kind of determines the total balance that you're holding at Baselane, which will determine the interest rate that you receive with us. If you have money sitting in security deposits, reserve accounts, you try to remain you try to keep a healthy reserve account. If you hold, say, 50K or greater within Baselane, you get our maximum APY. So if you just have money kicking around in a savings account at Chase or Wells Fargo or a bigger brick and mortar, you're getting about 0.07% or next to nothing. So that's usually a big pain point with a lot of folks that I work with. Another kind of hidden perk is if you hold 50K or greater within Baselane, you get unlimited free domestic wires. So depending on your strategy, if you're doing like fix and flips, you're buying constantly, or you simply just want to move money faster, it's a nice little perk. If you do use our rent collection, even if it's just one tenant, you do get a bonus APY. I like to say if you hold around 12,000 and change, it'll generate enough interest alone to pay for our subscription model, which we're going to get in today. But I'll be very clear when there's like a cost with Baselane. It's going to be a lot easier to do it that way because everything is essentially free. It's a free product to get started. There is no monthly fees or anything like that. So we'll break it down piece by piece. One thing I always like to say as well is there's absolutely no judgment here. Real estate's a funny game. Sometimes we have a lot of money. We feel generationally wealthy. Other times, you have negative $10 wondering and contemplating moving forward with real estate. That's real world, in my opinion. I see Duffy laughing. So he's been in the negative 10 before, I can assume.
I don't know if I've been negative, but there's oftentimes I've looked at my account and thought, gosh, I had $100 or a couple of $100,000. Where did it all go?
Exactly. It's that tightrope we play with constantly. So it's a roller coaster of emotion. So there's no judgment here. Sometimes you feel super rich, other times super broke. So I'm going to give one example today. This would be a business entity, a potential sole proprietorship that you have, or things in your personal name where you have a business that owns multiple properties. One thing I didn't mention is the speed. It's actually kind of important. It takes about 5 minutes to open up an account. You actually shouldn't need any documents if there's no typos. So I like to say by the time you drive to the bank, you've probably opened up all your entities, which is just a nice touch because it's all from your phone or your desktop. But clicking inside this entity as an example, a large percentage of investors that work with Baselane like the idea of separating different properties by different checking accounts. Very, very popular with property managers, especially if you're working with multiple owners that own, say, more than one property, and you just want a clear cut or clear line of how much that property is specifically making, taking your 10 to 20% cut, and then sending the remainder to the owner. It just depends what you're working with here, but it's quite simple. You can add as many as you want. One thing I like to point is we call them virtual accounts temporarily. We're actually making a change very soon, but we call them virtual accounts. It's a little bit deceiving in the name, but when you actually open a checking or savings account in Baselane, it takes a couple seconds, but they are real checking and saving accounts. And what that means more specifically is they're not sub accounts. They're not enveloped or bucketed. They're real live active checking accounts with their own unique account and routing number. So they are truly separate from one another. It can be quite helpful if you have multiple properties on the go. You might have multiple projects on the go. You might be the investor that chucks everything into one bank account, arguably personal or business. Sometimes you're just at the state of trying to get out of commingling your personal account with your business. But if you're the type of person that dumps everything into one account and you see you have a lot of money, maybe a new roof comes your way or a large expense and you see you have a lot of money, so you spend it, 6 months later, you just impacted your business and you had no idea. Sometimes it's hard to actually track the $17 fees, the $178 over here. Who knows? Sometimes it's hard to track if it's all coming in and out of one account. If that sounds familiar, you may or may not like to think about organizing slightly. Some folks like to separate by properties. Some folks like to separate very granular, like CapEx reserves, maintenance reserves, security deposits, saving for a brand new purchase, all that fun stuff. Is that helpful to see up front? I'm going to keep talking here, but one thing I like to ask is like, can you see yourself actually using something like this? Or is this like crazy talk? Is this chaos? I'd never do it. I always like to get a real answer. The reason a lot of folks do like to separate, and maybe more importantly for the property managers, especially if you're going to have like 20 checking accounts, which could sound like a lot, the biggest advantage is under the account details. You can set up the bookkeeping rules up front. And there's no cost here. It's just a matter of saying, okay, any and all transactions in that checking account will automatically tag to one of the properties, entities, or units that I've already created at the beginning of the call. So any transactions that occur out of property A here, I've automatically tagged them to property 1200 East Severn Way. That's 50% of the bookkeeping done up front if you utilize that bank account for any in or outgoing transaction. Is that helpful to see? Not so helpful to see? I'd be curious, and you won't hurt my feelings by saying no. Outside of that, I would like to put out a disclosure is anytime you do create an account, it is a separate account and routing number. We have a partner bank. That partner bank's name is Thread Bank. That way, when you deposit money into Baselane, it doesn't just disappear into the cloud. Somebody's actually responsible for those funds. That's where our FDIC insurance comes from, just for reference. But if you ever need to send out a void check or bank verification letter to direct deposit into your account, this would be where you find all the fun stuff. It operates just like your regular bank. So it just depends where you're at. You can order physical checkbooks. There is no minimum balance requirement. There's no NSF fees. There's no overdraft fees. There is no fees. It's a lot easier to just say that. Do you have an account or helpful? I have 7 bank accounts now. Is that at like a brick and mortar option, like a Chase, Wells Fargo kind of thing? Do you have to have an account with Baselane to use this, or can you use it with outside banks? Both. With credit union, yes. So sometimes I just did this, I think 2 days ago, where their credit union got bought out and they didn't like the bank that bought them. So they had to, well, they didn't have to, but they wanted to use Baselane. They were going to add minimum balance requirements. They're going to add different fees. So they just wanted an option with no fees. To answer your question, Jonathan, no, you do not have to use Baselane banking to utilize Baselane. This is just something that is quite helpful for folks that might feel either disorganized or are fed up with fees. Maybe they don't want to hold $2,500 in their bank account to avoid fees. It just depends on what bank you're with, honestly. In terms of like moving money, it's pretty easy. You're just going to send ACHs, wires, checks as you normally would. And if you need to send money to a contract or anything like that, I do like to disclose that we do not connect to Zelle. We do connect to like Cash App, PayPal, all that good stuff. But if you actually needed to send money to say like a contractor or anything like that, you just need their email and it will request their information. Yes, security deposits, very crucial because state to state, it just depends where you are. These are truly separate. You can hold your security deposits here. You just have to ask yourself if you want or need to collect interest on it. Just depending on your state, tenants can request to receive the interest that was gained on their money. Just depends where you're at specifically. Outside of that, that would be an example of like you own multiple properties in your personal name and you just truly want to separate them. There's some advantages there, which I'll show after. Outside of that, if you had property specific LLCs, you probably wouldn't want to create more than like 2 accounts just because it would be a lot to manage. The one thing I didn't show is when you do click the move money, it does break down pretty easy in terms of transferring funds between entities. It's just a little bit easier that way if you do have a lot going on, depending on what you're using it for. I do like to point out as well for short-term rental investors specifically, one of the more annoying things that I hear about every day is with Airbnb specifically. VRBO, some of the other options are great, or if you have a dedicated website for it, it's usually okay. But for Airbnb specifically, if you own multiple properties or multiple listings on Airbnb, and those properties make money on the same day, they'll bulk send you the money to your bank account. And then you have to cross-reference with Airbnb and your bank statement to figure out, okay, which property actually made what. That's a common complaint that I hear about every single day. So the easy fix on our end is because every time you create a different checking account, they're a unique account and routing number. You just input those on Airbnb for that property specifically. And then when that property makes money, it just makes sense. You know exactly why that money's in your account. and you can set up the bookkeeping accordingly. Some folks like the ability to create virtual cards for these. They're just virtual debit Visa cards, so they connect to your Google or Apple Wallet. Some of the advantages are really about maybe you want like a specific Netflix subscription card. Maybe you want to just control expenses from your cleaner, your landscaper, your maintenance guy that you've had for 15 years. You name it. Sometimes if you're on vacation and you want somebody looking over your properties to have an emergency fund, you can create a card instantly. You control the limits at all times. This is very common to use credit cards for points and rewards, which I would also recommend. So I'll show you how to utilize that as well. But maybe you have you bought things in bulk and you forgot something very petty, like cleaning supplies or paper towel or something, and you want to give your cleaner a card for $15 a month. That way you don't have to question anything. They can just go pick up items they need. The advantage here is you set up bookkeeping rules up front. You can select a property to tag it to, and then you can also categorize that transaction automatically as cleaning and maintenance. Very short and sweet example. I see this being a big benefit because I have quite a few QuickBooks accounts for different entities. This sounds like Suzanne with my investment properties and does fees. So yeah, one thing, if you have a CPA or bookkeeper, one thing they'll ask you up front, Jonathan, is does Baselane have a P&L and do they have a balance sheet? And the answer is yes. So what we get a lot of advice on from like a CPA perspective, if you have one, or you have like somebody consistently in your books, is that you might keep QuickBooks Online for say like your overarching holdings company, maybe a different business altogether. If you have like an e-commerce or a side hustle that's unrelated to real estate. But what you can do is downsize your QuickBooks version so that you don't have to separate properties by class anymore. We're going to take care of that part for you. So I'll break that down a little bit further here now. And what you could do is you downsize so you're paying less for your QuickBooks. You use us for some of the automation, cleaning up all your books. And at the end of the year, you can just download everything into a nice tax package for your CPA, and then they can upload it to QuickBooks, or you could do it prior. So we could help you with that too. There's two versions of Baselane. Core, which is free, Baselane Smart, which is our subscription model. Baselane Smart comes with some automation functionality. It's $20 a month on an annual, $25 on a month to month. Anybody that comes from this call will make sure you get some promotions there, so you're not paying for quite a while, which is great. But outside of that, I'm going to stick to the free version, and then we'll jump into the subscription model. Everything you've seen so far is free. But using QuickBooks Online specific as an example today, or maybe like a Buildium or any other property management software that you're using, the next logical step after you may or may not create an account is to connect your other existing bank accounts. So this could be your Bank of America, a credit union, it could be a Chase, it could be all of them, it could be all of your credit cards, depending on where you're at and what you're working with. All you do is click add, or you could hover over your accounts here and go to external accounts. But all you're doing is importing your transactions from all of these locations. So what that means is you're just connecting through Plaid. You're just going to sign into that specific bank account. For example, if it's Chase, I don't know why this is taking so long. That's interesting. That's new to me. Am I frozen right now? I see no cameras on. Or is that just a coincidence? I think that's a coincidence. If you were to click Chase as an example, two things happen. One, once you make that connection, you can move money back and forth between Baselane and your external bank account pretty easily. It's free. And then the second thing that occurs that you may or may not want to happen is that we'll pull up to 2 years worth of transaction history directly into our bookkeeping ledger. So really, really great if you're connecting multiple credit cards, multiple bank accounts, and you just want a clean location to help yourself with your accounting. Very, very simple. If you start collecting rent through us as well, through multiple platforms. If you're using QuickBooks specifically, you can import Excel files just as you would with QuickBooks maybe for the first time. Import all your historical data, and then you can use our software to clean it up. I'll give a couple real world samples here, things that happen to me, and then also just things that I see on a daily basis. If you want to add your CPA, oh, thank you. Thanks, Lena. Yes, Jonathan, you can add bookkeeping access, CPA access, VA access with read-only view. Outside of that, there's two versions. On the free version, all you have to do is make sure your transactions that come in, whether they're at Baselane, credit cards, wherever, is that you categorize your transaction and associate it to a property or an entity. If you do these two things, your reports will be accurate and your taxes will be significantly easier. You can store receipts through Baselane Smart. We're going to go through the automations here in a second. If you want to categorize manually, you can. You just click select category. There's 152 different options here. You can just type what it is. If it's rent, you can click rent. If you need to go more granular and say it's Section 8 rent, you can do so. As long as you do these two things, you'll have accurate reports. If you need to go and say split transactions, whether you're a property manager trying to split by a certain percentage, maybe you are purchasing things in bulk and you need to split it amongst multiple properties. Maybe you just bought a house tomorrow for $300,000 and you're trying to get your depreciation set up. You're trying to separate by state tax, school tax, village tax, lawyer fees, professional fees, all that good stuff. And you're trying to break down that $300,000 to every single penny is accounted for. You can add as many splits as you want. Could be as simple as a Netflix subscription that you're trying to split between multiple STR units as well. Outside of that, you can add invoices and receipts directly or manually to these transactions, but it gets a little more fun with Baselane Smart. So any questions so far, feel free to type them in. But everything you've seen so far is free. There is no hidden fees or anything like that. There's no monthly fees. There's nothing like that. But if you just upgrade to Baselane Smart, I like to point out that my favorite thing to do is actually turn off our automation, which is our auto tag assistant. Unless you're bringing in previous information that you've categorized or you try it with this off for 15 days, then turn it on, it may or may not be a better experience. It's actually learning from over 50,000 other investors, so you can turn it on right away and it'll work great. But what it's going to do is actually start automatically categorizing your transactions as they come in. So if you started categorizing transactions to a very specific state utility company, it's going to remember that and adopt how you've been doing it. So it's just going to start tagging and categorizing your transactions for you. If you pair this with our banking, matching it to a property, then pretty much all of it is done. I would say arguably around 70% of your bookkeeping would be done automatically. If you go into manage automations, or you know that you always have a very specific transaction coming through, whether it's Venmo, Zelle, a specific Section 8 payment coming in, you can click on manage automations and then just start creating rules. Create rules for every single thing that you can possibly think of. And then this will get you to about 98% automated on your bookkeeping. The challenge is if you have to have splits on your transactions, so you have to manually do some things. Depending on your specific business model, you may get to like 85% automation. But the goal here is if a particular transaction matches a description detail, so you always hire the same landscaping company, you always hire the same maintenance guy. You just put in if a description matches this particular detail, then it's automatically going to categorize as maintenance. It might automatically associate to a specific unit or property. Update all your previous or existing transactions that you brought into Baselane, and it will do it in bulk. If you're one of the folks that filed for another extension for the 3rd year in a row, you're behind on taxes, which is real world in my opinion. Maybe you're the type of person at tax time where you're super stressed and you spent 2 weeks trying to organize your books and you still didn't do it. And you just said, I'll deal with it later. This is going to make it a lot easier for you. If you're bringing in messy Excel sheets where you've kind of been winging it, if you're bringing in all your property management softwares and your documents that you've been trying to keep up with, you can utilize our AI to clean up previous years, and then you can utilize our tax center, which I'm going to get into. I think I'm going a little bit slow paced here, so I'm going to speed up my talking a little bit just so you can see the actual analytics and then the rent side of things. Any questions so far on what you've seen? And one other feature that I'll mention is uploading receipts. So you go to Home Depot, you spend money, you get your receipt, you can upload your receipt directly, and then it will automatically match to a transaction and it attaches it to it as well. So you can download them in bulk later, which is really, really helpful if you're anything like me. I used to store receipts in a shoebox, sometimes grocery bags month to month. My CPA absolutely hated me in that regard. But outside of that, if you do these two things, categorize, associate transactions to a property, you'll have accurate reports and an accurate tax center. Again, if you're anything like me, you got into real estate thinking it was going to be easy because you watched it on TV as a kid, or you just seen it all the time, you read about it, and then you forgot that you're running a business, you forgot about taxes, you didn't think about bookkeeping, all that fun stuff. This is us trying to make it as easy as possible. I was very much in there. I tried to double my portfolio. I knew I had the money, but the lenders asked me for all my financials. I didn't have them. So I couldn't prove that I was making money, but I knew I was making money. If you do those two things, categorize your transaction, associate to a property, you'll have access to all of our reports. You'll have a P&L, you'll have a balance sheet. If you know you have money and maybe you have a strong LTV or you have some equity in some properties, and you're trying to pull funds from those two properties and go buy more, you can grab your properties, your entities, download the information after you've filtered by category. I know I'm going a little bit quick and my screen is a little bit buggy on here and it's very small. I apologize. I need to get these removed. If you want to just say, hey, I'm stabilized. It's been 6 months. I'm cash flowing. Here's the proof. Private lender, banker, give me more money. I'd like to go buy another property, please. If you want to filter units by side comparisons, if you like to break down your entire portfolio by property side by side and just see how things are performing, how things are doing, what's making money, where are you losing money, all that fun stuff. If you're using AI right now and you really just want to like get all the information cleaned up, send it to AI to give you advice, you can always download the information and go from there as well. If you're just trying to download your P&L for a CPA, you can utilize that as well. The real benefit, in my opinion, is tax time for the majority of folks that I work with. Big or small, we all hate tax time and we all hate the accounting side of the work, or the work behind the accounting side. With us, if you've done those two things that I'll say on repeat, categorize your transactions, associate them to a property, you'll be able to generate a tax package. The benefit here is it's going to combine everything into one nice package. You're sending it to your CPA. All your categorized, uncategorized transactions, your Schedule E, your transaction ledger, your cash flow reports, all your receipts if you're utilizing Baselane Smart, download it into one package, you send that to the CPA, and then we pray that we're done with taxes. If you're not done with taxes, you're going to be significantly fast forwarded ahead, and your CPA might not hate you as much as mine did. Every year I just show up with my grocery bags and dump them on his desk, and I could feel the pain. I don't know if you've done that before, but it's real world in my opinion. Any questions from what you've seen so far? Is that helpful to see? I know it's a lot of talking. Anything like that. Love it. Okay. Outside of that, I will give you a quick sneak peek on rent collection. I do apologize if that's what you're waiting for the most part, but I'll compare it to something like, say, Buildium, Stessa, you name it. But once you've added your property at the beginning of the call, if you're the investor that hates texting their tenant that they're late again, if your tenants have asked you for an online portal and you don't have anything or a software that you're using, you're still collecting cash or Zelle, you could utilize our tenant portal here. So you're just setting up rent collection once you've added a property. This will automate the process for you. We're going to send them reminders. Tenants will get access to their own portal. They can pay via ACH pay. They can pay with credit cards, debit cards. We use Stripe as a payment processor for context. The two things that we don't currently offer and probably won't for 2026, because you've mentioned Buildium, I do like to point out that where you may not be using their full software, they are a full suite of property management. We don't have vacancy postings or syndicate listings, so we won't post open and available units. And tenants will not be able to create, say, work order requests or in-app messaging to say, hey, something's broken, I need it fixed. We don't offer it. I'd like to say we're definitely a little bit more simplified, but if the goal is to just automate rent collection so that you don't have to deal with it, then we're perfect. Outside of that, you're just selecting the property you'd like to receive rent to, going through all the fun stuff. I won't go line by line here, but you're just setting up your lease terms. How much is rent? Is there additional fees like parking, pet fees, you name it? What time is rent due? Is there late fees? Are you charging $50 the day after? Are you going 10 days after and charging up to $250? Depends on your state, depends on you as a business owner and what you'd like to do here. But this part would be automated. We notify them, all that fun stuff. If it's a brand new tenant, you can collect security deposits to a different account if needed. You can prorate rent if you're starting on the 23rd of July, you name it, and then review the invoices that get sent. The high level view here is selecting your bank account. If you're receiving money to a Chase account or a credit union, it is a $2 ACH fee to the tenant. If you're receiving it into a Baselane bank account, it is a free ACH to a tenant. Add your tenant details, their first name, their email, send off an invitation. They sign up, they can set up their automated banking and go from there. A value add that I like to point out if you're renting on the midterm side to say like students or traveling folks is that they can pay $5 a month. We report their month rent to all major credit bureaus, all that fun stuff. We do have the option for lease agreements, tenant screening, all that good stuff. The tenant pays the fee. You can opt in as a landlord, but I've never seen it out of 1,000. So I don't know any landlord that would take on that fee. And rightfully so, also like tenant screening and things like that, you can charge it to the tenant as well. Pretty fast overview today. I would say arguably maybe a little bit slower than my usual stuff. I apologize. Maybe a bit more monotone than I usually am, but any and all questions are welcome. Personal, professional. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is the best thing I've ever seen. It's all welcome. And if there's something that's missing I'd also love to hear that feedback because it goes directly to our team, and we're trying to build it to be better. And hopefully you learn something new, Duffy. I'll put you on the spot again. Maybe not. Maybe this is something you've seen 100 times.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's definitely got, I think, a lot of similarities to Buildium. Yeah, no, it looks good. The only thing concerning to me is not having the work orders, because that's how all our tenants submit. I don't ever want to hear from them. They submit all their stuff through the Buildium maintenance request, and my guy who helps with that sees them and schedules, creates work orders, schedules maintenance. So that's
usually with folks like in Buildium, they're there for a reason for some of those features. Usually we would say keep Buildium, utilize our banking and bookkeeping, of course. And then if it was helpful, you just go on Buildium, switch where it's actually going, and then navigate from there. It's an obligation, of course.
Yeah.
I need to find an accountant that knows Baselane. I think my current bookkeeper would not transition. Is there a resource for bookkeepers? Yeah. I would say a good resource would be myself. I've worked with accountants and bookkeepers for about 3.5 years at a different fintech competitor called Relay, if anybody's heard of it. I helped build a lot of their team as well. And I work directly with accountants and bookkeepers. And I don't know if there's any better person on the planet to kind of show this part of, but it's very common with bookkeepers. They get very, very threatened because immediately they assume they're being replaced, which is a fair assumption, depending on how you present it. I always like to point out that it's not necessarily a replacement for them, but it's trying to empower them. Or bookkeepers are becoming more and more around like mini fractional CFOs where they're offering strategic advice rather than just cleaning up your books like they used to. So they've also pivoted with AI in my opinion. So it just depends on your bookkeeper, how open they are to change or how threatened they feel as an individual to trying a new software. But we're happy to meet with them as well and then make sure all their questions are answered as well. So they're not completely shocked by a decision. Usually what I like to do is I'll meet folks. You're welcome to use email me separately, individually, especially when it comes to banking stuff. That stuff would usually remain anonymous. And I like to personalize everything to you, learn everything I can about your performance as a human and personalize the entire process to you, whether that's with myself directly or with my colleague Bassam as well, or somebody else. But I like to personalize everything I possibly can. And then, you know, it might take you 6 months to join Baselane. It might sound like a lot of work to think about banking. You could even just be thinking about the classes in QuickBooks and have a mini panic attack because there's just so much information. I'm a big fan of one foot in front of the other, piece by piece, build a foundation, and then just add to that. It doesn't mean you have to switch your banks. It doesn't mean that you have to switch your softwares, but maybe say by January 1st, it doesn't make sense to keep those softwares anymore.
Yeah,
But,
I would say that's been my experience, just slowly transitioning people, whether it's like at turnover or if I feel like they're ready to move over to Baselane for rent collection. I've been doing that step by step and like setting up, you know, all the accounts and entities and stuff. So it hasn't been that hard, but I've had a few focus sessions with my bookkeeper, just doing it together so she can see how the system works, and that's been really helpful. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Love it. And we do have a resource, Justin. I apologize. We do have an ambassador program within Baselane, and in that ambassador program, they're like also investors that use Baselane, but they also own a bookkeeping firm. So I could absolutely suggest them. My goal would just not be to replace your bookkeeper from a first meet, but if it makes sense for you, I'm happy to make those type of introductions.
Yeah, I'm just not organized enough to manage it on my own.
You're not alone, my friend. I promise.
It's just way too in the way for that.
I hear you there. That's why I had the grocery bags and my CPA hated me because I was ready to go now. What happens with bookkeepers, not to pick on them, and I know we're at a time and I'm going to be respectful of that, is they don't really care about your business as much as you do. So if you're trying to negotiate on a deal today, you want to know if you can buy that deal now. You don't want to wait a month to get your finances in order to like go buy that property. It's a good deal now. You want to buy it now. You know you have the money. You're going to pull money from anywhere and everywhere that you can to make it happen anyway. So organization is just one piece to obviously set yourself up for success. But in the real world, you could have a perfect plan. A deal comes across your desk today and you might even dip into your credit card to make it happen. Who knows? In my opinion, that's real world. So you're just going to go make it work. And then the organization comes a little bit later as well. I've done it I'm not perfect by any means, so I'll still buy anything if it makes the most sense, and I'll make it happen one way or another. Awesome. This is a lovely group. I love the stories. Would love to learn more. So if you reach out to me directly, absolutely happy to help. Sorry, I missed the chat there. What do you think are the biggest benefits, improvements of Baselane versus Buildium? Yeah, I wouldn't even put us in the same category. Buildium is purely property management. The benefit there is that you get a direct human to work with that actually understands your business. Where Buildium, they do offer you account management. They offer you 8 hours of onboarding for a cost. You can do US citizen or outside of US for cheaper. It's not as pure, in my opinion, but the big one is that why a lot of folks join Baselane over, say, Buildium, is that Buildium's expensive and they don't need everything Buildium offers. Sometimes folks like to keep things simple, and that's where we really like to cater to.
Thanks.
Love it. I love everybody for joining. This is great. Importing QBO history into Baselane. It wouldn't be a direct two-way sync, Justin. We would do it the old-fashioned way. Import a CSV, so you'd convert your QBO into a file, import from there. The difference is that somebody in our team can help you with that as well. Whether you use Claude, ChatGPT, anything like that, we can navigate it. But I did hear you mention that you wouldn't, quote unquote, be organized enough to want to deal with that. So someone from our team would definitely help you for sure.
And that's really also just a function of connecting your external bank accounts and your external credit cards, and then it downloads up to 2 years of history. So unless you're going back further than 2 years for reports, you may just be fine by connecting those bank accounts and credit cards, because it will all populate in there, and then you can start training it with the AI or yourself, however you decide to do it. That's what I really liked, is I've been able to go back even to 2020 and kind of get some things cleaned up and split some of those expenses that I hadn't really done before. So super helpful there. Even though I do have now my Baselane accounts for rent collection, I have all the history from my prior bank account and the credit card that I continue to use for my rental properties.
Yeah, I have 7 bank accounts and about 12 credit cards and pulling down all that information every month is such a manual, tedious task. Is that automated somehow?
Yeah, if I understood correctly, all you're doing is, for example, I actually helped an investor last month, Sam and I did, and they had 77 credit cards. They were doing credit card hacking, blew my mind. It was the coolest strategy, just my ADHD as well could not handle that. His spreadsheets were absolutely cool to look at, just something I would never actually do. But I thought it was going to break our system. It didn't. Somehow connected all of them. All of them will pull, and then every 3 hours it'll update. So if you go on one of your credit cards, you spend money, give it like 3 hours. It just depends when the sync comes in. That transaction will funnel into your Baselane account, and then you would just categorize or set up the automation from there.
So to be clear, I wouldn't necessarily have to download statements every month from 19 different accounts manually.
No, absolutely not. No, you would not.
Segment.
Yeah, I used to use Mint, and I don't know if anyone else used that here. Does it track? I think what I just heard was it tracks it similarly almost. You just input your outside credit card, and then maybe it's better. Maybe similar is not the right word, but.
No, it is correlated in that aspect. It would work similar. Yeah, you're just connecting all the dots into one place and then utilizing our AI to clean it up for you, essentially.
Okay.
Or you can just do it on your own.
Sweet.
So it would work like that. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, any other last questions before we sign up? Thank you all for joining. We will have the replay posted on our YouTube channel, which I should put in here real fast. If you want to go back and listen on slow mode or fast, whatever speed works for you, you can catch the replay. We'll usually have it posted within 24 hours. So thank you all for joining.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.